Hare Krishna. We would like to welcome all of you all to this 2-day seminar on the easy road from stress to bliss. All of you all must be wondering what exactly is that easy road. Stress doesn't ever seem to be bliss. So I'm going to speak the next 2 days from one section of the Ramayana that is considered to be one of the most dramatic and heart-rending sections. This is a section of the Ramayana which is full of unpredictability and full of situations where twists and turns occur. Essentially, day 1, which we are going to discuss today, is going to be called as emotional challenges of the human heart. How does a human being deal with fluctuations in emotions? How does a human being deal with crises that come while exhibiting certain emotions towards certain people and towards certain situations in life? And day 2, which is going to be tomorrow, we're going to discuss, the theme will be the blessings of bad luck. How can one perceive bad luck in a positive way? So, kindly fasten your seat belts and get ready to take off on a journey on the Ramayana. I can assure you one thing, that you will learn something and go from here. Because Ramayana and books like the Ramayana, all the scriptures, are books that have a lot of wisdom hidden under them, and this wisdom is not just meant to be hidden and kept, but rather it is meant to be excavated and shared and heard and applied. So we are all here to learn from the Ramayana and to see how we can apply the teachings of the Ramayana in our personal lives. So this whole concept of emotional challenges is all depending on how we perceive emotions that come into our life. Whenever we are able to accept some emotions, accept some situations that come into our life in a positive way, it leads to positive emotions. And when we are not able to accept something in our life, it leads to negative emotions. Acceptance and non-acceptance. So essentially, acceptance will keep a person emotionally tranquil, and non-acceptance will make a person emotionally completely capsized, negative. So if something happens in our life in the way we want it to happen, and if something is happening in our life in the way we don't want it to happen, we have planned so much in our life and something happens that completely upsets our plan. If you are not able to accept it, then it becomes anger. But if you are able to accept it, it becomes tolerance. Fear is one of those elements that people really don't want it to come into their lives. And I know each one of us go through fears. Sometimes just unknown fears. We don't know why we are fearful. And sometimes known fears. We know why we are fearful, but we don't know how to deal with it. So essentially, when I face some uncertainty in my life, uncertainty causes fear. But when I accept that uncertainty, when I am able to face that uncertainty with acceptance, that is not called fear, but that is called as adventure. I was in South Africa a few days back, and somebody took me to a football stadium. And in the middle of the football stadium, the football stadium has a big arc. And on top of that arc, actually people can climb that arc. There is a stairways to go right on top of the arc. So when you are in the center of the arc, you are right in the center of the football field. And people climb that arc, and from that arc they jump into the field to do bungee jumping. Can you imagine? I was asking somebody, why do people take so much risk? And they told me, when uncertainty is dealt with acceptance, it is called as adventure. When someone has something that you don't have, or someone has been able to achieve more than what you are able to achieve, if you are not able to accept that, it becomes jealousy. But if you are able to accept it, it becomes inspiration. You look at that person and you become inspired by that person. If someone has hurt you very badly and you are not able to accept that hurt, it becomes hatred. And if you are able to accept that hurt, it becomes forgiveness. So essentially, when anything in life is handled with non-acceptance, it becomes a negative emotion. And when anything in life is handled with acceptance, it becomes a positive emotion. That's called the emotional equation of life. So here, we are here to discuss the emotional challenges of the human heart. Each one of us sitting in this room very clearly have gone through challenges, have very clearly gone through emotional turbulences, and we have very clearly failed many times. Yes, sometimes we did manage to succeed by fluke. But most of the times we just fail miserably when our emotions go topsy-turvy. So here is a story from the Ramayana that may help us handle these emotions in the right way, especially when it comes to human relationships. Before I enter into the story of the Ramayana, let me offer my respects to Valmiki Muni, the person who wrote the Ramayana. Kujantam Rama Rameti Maduram Maduraksharam Aruya Kavita Shakam Vande Valmiki Kokilam Valmiki Muni Simhasya Kavita Vanicharinaha Shrinva Rama Katanadam Konayanti Paramgatim. So I am taking all of y'all to a certain section of the Ramayana which is technically called as the Ayodhya Kand. Ayodhya Kand is the second volume of the Ramayana, and it deals between the story of the Ramayana from the marriage of Lord Ram till Lord Ram reaches Chitrakoot. Of course, I am not really going into all the details of the entire book because it's quite voluminous. This seminar, we are going to only deal from the time Ram gets married, Dashrath starts having worries. And we will stop with Ram leaving Ayodhya on exile. And we will end the seminar there tomorrow evening. Hopefully, we will be able to allow Ram to leave Ayodhya. And once he leaves Ayodhya, then we will stop and we will allow him to be in exile for a few years. And probably after a couple of months, we will resume where we left. So, Dashrath, one day, he was running in the city of Ayodhya in the middle of the night. He was running at a great speed. And as Dashrath was running, he was running away from something. He was running away from a monster. And the most surprising thing for Dashrath was that his own city, the city that he knew so well, was completely empty. Nobody on the streets of the city, no human beings, not even animals. And as Dashrath was running at a great pace, he felt that he is running short of time. He felt that something is going wrong. How much ever fast I go, I'm not going to be able to make it away from the monster. And the harder he tried, the closer the monster seemed to come. And he kept running and running and running at great speed. He was knocking at people's doors. His own ministers, whom he had trained so much, whom he had loved so much, no one was opening the door. And finally, as Dashrath made a turn, the monster who was following him caught him under his grip. The grip of the monster was so intense. Dashrath was trying to flap his hands, trying to wave his hand, or somehow or the other get away from the grip of the monster. And just as he hit his hand to get away from the grip of the monster, a vase that was standing near his bed fell down. This was a dream. Dashrath was running in a dream. Dashrath was going mad in a dream. And something was chasing him in a dream. How much ever Dashrath flapped in that dream, he couldn't get out of the grip of the monster. And as soon as that vase fell off, the flower vase fell off, few guards came running to find out what's happening to the king. And that's when Dashrath realized all this was just a dream. Dashrath has been having many dreams like this. Days have passed. Dashrath has been dreaming of this monster chasing him and different things that are coming and disturbing him in his mind. The guards came running and they wanted to find out, can we do something to help you, my dear king? The king said, he couldn't say anything, but he was thinking, how can anyone catch a dream monster? In life, many times, people go through negative situations, and those negative situations are situations where nobody outside can help them, only they can help themselves. How much ever they explain what they are going through, the outside person is not going to be able to understand what the negativity is, because it's all in the mind. Dashrath was going through a series of such dreams, and he got up and began to walk. Because as soon as he would close his eyes, again something negative would come up. Again some horror would come up. As Dashrath was walking around, he was looking at his palace. Ornate palace. Beautiful furnishing, extremely exquisite chandeliers and all kind of tapestry. So the opulence of Dashrath, the opulences of Dashrath's palace seemed to be lackluster with the kind of dreams that Dashrath is having. He was just not able to enjoy what he was going through, what he was having. So Dashrath, he walked up to a mirror and he looked at himself in the mirror. And as Dashrath looked at himself in a mirror, he had a very interesting realization. He realized that he was smiling for the rest of the world. In the day when the world would see him, he would be smiling. He would be seeming to be happy. But now as he looks himself in the mirror, he is realizing that he is really not happy, frustrated. So essentially, he was feeling totally helpless. So the happy vibrations that he sent out during the daytime were all lies. And these lies buried the truth of the nighttime horrors that Dashrath was going through. Dashrath was feeling something terrible is going to happen soon. The first lesson that we learn in life is that the canvas of life is a result of past strokes, multitude of past strokes. Rather than brooding over those erroneous past strokes, which cannot be undone, one has to learn to learn from the mistakes that we make and apply that mistakes with wisdom and try to paint a beautiful future. So essentially, Dashrath was running against time. There were some mistakes that Dashrath had made in his past that was chasing him, that were disturbing him, that were reminding him of the disastrous future that is coming. So essentially, people in this world have smiling faces, crying hearts. That's the nature of this world. Externally, perfectly fine. If you ask somebody, how are you? Fine. With a smile. So the smile that is there outside need not be the smile that is there inside. So essentially, how does the smile, how long can one go on smiling faces and crying hearts? Till one of the two things happen. Either till the smile of the face goes to the heart, or the cry of the heart comes to the face. In life, life is a game. That's why I call this book as Ramayana, the game of life. So, I'm sure all of you all would have played games at some point of time in your lives, or at least watched games at some point of time in your life. Think about this. There are many games in this world, the rules of which are very funny. Just don't make sense only. For example, tennis. The score, if you study how the score is kept, 15, 30 and 45. I mean, some of these rules of the games just doesn't make sense. You look at any game, look at chess. Look at the way the king is behaving. Look at the way, horse is behaving. So certain things just don't make sense. So many times, whether we like it or not, we have to accept those rules. That is how the game is played. If you don't want to follow the rules, leave the game. You can't say, change the rule for me. I can't play the game as long as the rules are bad. So essentially, when you learn to accept the rules of the game and learn to love the game and then master the game and then win the game, that's when the game makes sense. So all of us are here not to change the rules of the game, but rather to master the game, win the game of life. So here, many people try to come to change the rules of the game of life. The rules of the game of life cannot be changed, because the people who make the game are very different from the people who play the game. Those who have made the game, they have made and they have gone. Now you don't have the option of making a game. If you don't like the rules of this game, go and play some other game. But you can't say change the rules of this game. That's exactly how life is. We may say, I don't like the rule of this game. This game of life is very boring. Change the rules for me, then only I'll play it. Whether you want to play it or no, it's up to you, but the rules of the game of life will not change. So what we can do at best, instead of trying to come and reform the game, we can try to learn the game and start playing the game properly. So essentially, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how the game is played. What matters is who wins the game. So in life, whenever we go through crisis, whenever we go through situations where we are not able to understand why something is happening, we are not able to understand why this is going on in my life, that is when we have to remember, we don't make the rules. We have to learn to follow the rules and win the game of life. Dashrath, at this point of time, he was looking at himself in the mirror. And as he was looking at himself in the mirror, he noticed something very interesting. He noticed that all over his head, he had grey hair. I mean, in Bombay, if one person notices grey hair on the head, that's like a disaster. I know. The first grey hair that comes on the head, that's a disaster for people. In fact, people keep a watch out for grey hair on the head as you grow older. And here Dashrath is so old that his whole hair has become grey, and he has not even noticed that his hair has become grey. Why? Because Dashrath was so much absorbed in his responsibilities that he had no time to find out that he is growing old. So essentially, the duties of the king had kept Dashrath too busy to even understand that he is growing old. He was thinking, how did I not notice? He was thinking maybe the white umbrella that is there over the head of a king that had camouflaged the white hair, that he had. So, all said and done, he knew that he is aging. And he knew that something has to be done to change this. And that's when a happy thought came across the mind of Dashrath. So, for 2.5 decades, for 25 years now, whenever Dashrath thought of this happy thought, he had always found hope in his life. And the happy thought was Ram. Whenever he thought of his first son, Dashrath considered himself to be a man with 4 hands. His 4 sons were considered to be like his 4 arms. And the strongest arm was Ram. And whenever he had a weakness in his life, whenever he had a sad phase in his life, the memory of Ram would help him become happy, would help him become relieved of his negativity and suffering. So immediately, as soon as Dashrath remembered Ram, now his mindset changed from despair to hope. Half of the night had passed already in despair. Half of the night Dashrath had been having bad dreams and nightmares, anxiety, frustration, crying. And now, after this thought that Dashrath had, the second half of the night went in hope. Till this point of time, he was dreading night. Now, he was waiting for the day to come. He was waiting for the sun to rise. So essentially, life is a combination of hope and despair. The one that dominates you carves your personality. Each one of us will be given a set of problems in life and given a set of joys in life. How do we handle the problems and joys of life determines how we live life. The Mahabharata talks about a very interesting story. This story is not exactly in the Mahabharata, but it's a folk tale connected to the Mahabharata. But it's a fantastic story. I just love this story. So one time Krishna and Balaram, they were going to the forest. They were on a walk to the forest. And it became late in the evening and it was time for them to take rest. So Krishna told Balaram that you guard me first, I'll take rest first. And you walk around and guard. And after some time when you're exhausted, you just call me out, I'll get up and you sleep. So like that we will guard each other and we'll take some rest also. Krishna went to sleep immediately. And Balaram was guarding Krishna. And as Balaram was guarding Krishna, a huge monster came. And when Balaram saw this monster, he kind of got a little bewildered. And the monster came in front of Balaram and screamed. Really loudly he screamed. And when the monster screamed, Balaram became small, a little smaller, and the monster became a little bigger. So Balaram got even more bewildered. And the monster screamed one more time. And as the monster screamed one more time, Balaram became even more smaller, and the monster became even more bigger. And a third time the monster screamed. And when the monster screamed the third time, Balaram became even more smaller and the monster became even more bigger. And Balaram, he couldn't handle it. He shouted out, Krishna! And he fainted. He fell unconscious. So when Krishna heard his name being shouted, Krishna got up. And he saw Balaram sleeping. He thought Balaram went to sleep, I have to guard him. So Krishna walked around guarding Balaram. And the monster came again. And when the monster saw Krishna, he screamed at Krishna. Krishna looked at the monster and asked him, what do you want? And as soon as Krishna asked him, what do you want? The monster became small and Krishna became bigger. And the monster, he got bewildered. He tried again. He screamed again. And Krishna asked him, what do you want? And the monster became smaller and Krishna became bigger. And finally, the third time, the monster really put all his energy and screamed again. And Krishna asked him, what do you want? And the monster became really tiny. And Krishna became much bigger. Krishna took the monster and put it in his dhoti, tied him up, and went to sleep. The next day morning, Balaram, he told Krishna as they were going back, he said, Krishna, do you know what happened yesterday night? Krishna said, what happened? He said, a monster came and he was screaming at me so badly. And Krishna removed that monster from his dhoti and showed it to Balaramji. He said, is this the same monster? Balaram was bewildered. He said, how did he become so small? He was so big yesterday and he was growing in size. Through the words of Krishna, Vyasadeva gives a very interesting message. He says, problems that come in life are like this monster. When the problem comes in front of us, if we are not able to deal with the problem, and we get bewildered, we get scared, the problem seems bigger than us. And the more we get scared, the problem seems bigger and bigger and bigger. The way we deal with problems is that, when you ask the problem, what do you want? When you learn to deal with problems in life with calmness, with equanimity, the problem doesn't seem so big. In fact, the problem seems to become smaller and smaller and smaller in comparison to your calmness and your equanimity. That's how life is. So here, Dashraths is going through a heavy problem in his life and he was not able to face it. So, when he learned to face it, the same problem, from despair, it turned into hope. So, as the sun rose in the morning, Dashrath got up with great eagerness and he decided that he's going to do something that is going to put an end to his nightmares. He decided to do something that is going to be a complete change to all the negativity that he has been going through in his life. Dashrath, he rode on his royal elephant and he started going towards his courtroom. So as Dashrath was riding on his royal elephant, thousands of citizens were standing in lines on both the sides. And each of them were looking at their powerful king and admiring him, admiring his power, basking under his protective glance. But as Dashraths was moving towards the palace, inside the mind of Dashrath, while sitting on that elephant, on top of the royal elephant, as a king of Ayodhya, a series of weak thoughts were running in his mind. All the nightmares that he had witnessed so many days, they were flashing back in his mind again. This was in daylight, broad daylight. Eyes were open, people were around him. And as people were around him, Dashrath was able to see so many dreams. And as Dashrath was seeing, he was seeing himself running, he was seeing himself that a serpent was strangling him in his neck. He saw that, he saw the image of a weird promise that he had made in his younger days. Some flashes of, weird promises that he had made. He heard gurgling of water pot in, pot filling water, that kind of sound he heard. And then he heard anguish of a cry of a boy. All kinds of weird sounds were going on in Dashrath's mind. He was just not able to figure out what's happening. And all this, while the citizens were looking at him with hope. While the citizens were looking at him, thinking that here is our protector, and basking under his protective glances. Every protector needs protection. Being constantly reminded of such a need keeps the protector humble. So everyone has two roles in this world. Everyone in this world has a role to play and a role to depend. So the absence of a role to play, it causes despair. When you don't have any role to play in this world, you become hopeless. But the absence of the role to depend causes arrogance. When you don't play both the roles, then you go through trouble in your life. So Dashrath was such a powerful person, sitting on such a powerful royal elephant. Thousands of people were looking at him and taking appreciation from him, but he himself needed protection. The protector needed protection. So Dashrath did a detour of his elephant. He didn't go to his palace. He straight went to what Dashrath considered to be the center of Ayodhya. He went to the temple of Ranganath. So it is explained in the history of Ayodhya that Lord Brahma, he had a beautiful deity of Ranganath. So Lord Brahma handed over the deity of Ranganath to the king of the Ikshwaku dynasty. So he handed it over to Ikshwaku, and then it came down in succession from one king after another till it came to Dashrath. So Dashrath was personally worshipping Ranganath for so many years now. So Dashrath decided to go to that palace, to the temple of Ranganath, to seek protection. And as he was praying, he began to feel a lot of hope. Prayer, which is peppered with a feeling of helplessness, is a tool to attract grace. Many times, when does one take shelter of prayers? In Bollywood movies, we find that people go to a temple only for two reasons. One is for marriage, and second is when they fall in trouble. They bang the bell and say, "Tu Bhagwan ho ya pattar ki murti ho," very common dialogue. So when you are helpless, when you are going through situations of helplessness, that is the time that you think of taking shelter of prayers. So when prayer is peppered with the feeling of helplessness, it becomes a tool to attract grace. Hare Krishna, is there possibility of decreasing? Oh, wow. That's interesting. So these are, I guess, auto-controlled ACs. Just wish and they decrease. So essentially, when there is a situation of helplessness in our lives, it is very easy to take shelter of prayers. And when we take shelter of prayers in a situation of helplessness, grace descends. But grace really descends when this kind of prayer is unobstructed by the wall of pride. Each one of us, when we go in front of the deities and we offer prayers to the deities, actually there is a transparent wall. If there is pride in our heart, you can see the deity, but your prayers don't reach the deity, because the transparent wall of pride prevents your prayers from reaching the deities. Similarly, if you want grace to come into your life, And if you want your prayers to reach God, the transparent wall of pride has to come down. So Dashrath, at this point of time in his life, he was going through helplessness. Each one of us in our lives, we will go through one situation at least where we are totally helpless. And we genuinely pray. In the jungles of Africa, when giraffes give birth to baby giraffes, there's a very interesting learning from it. So can you imagine how tall a giraffe is? And when the baby giraffe falls down, it falls down with a thud. Can you imagine what a birth? Happy birthday. Landing on a birthday. Or they would say happy landing probably. And when the giraffe baby lands on the ground with a thud, it's just totally bewildered. He doesn't know what's going on here. And then suddenly he figures out, I'm out somewhere and I have to really, he tries to get up. And he struggles somehow to get up. And just as he manages to get up, the mother giraffe, she goes to him and kicks him down. Can you imagine the kick of a mother giraffe? It is explained the kick of a giraffe can kill a lion. That is the power of a giraffe's kick. One kick. So with that power, the giraffe kicks the baby giraffe. And the giraffe goes flying. The giraffe is wondering, what did I do? I was just born. I didn't know anything. I just took birth now. I couldn't have made a mistake also. And somehow or other he is dazed and he gets up. And the mother giraffe goes and kicks him again. He goes flying again, far away. And this baby is wondering, what is my mother doing? Completely bewildered. And then the baby gets up again. And the mother is coming. Now the baby realizes what she's coming for. And then she kicks. And as she kicks, before the kick reaches, the baby giraffe runs away, escapes at the nick of the moment, and the mother becomes happy. Because baby giraffe's meat is most tasty for lions. So the mother knows before the baby is ready for anything else, he has to be ready to be alert. And therefore the mother trains in such a bad way. Similarly, in our life also, we go through so much situations of helplessness. Understand that our mother, who is God, is training us for something worse to come. Every kick that we get is a kick planned to get us ready, to get us prepared for some kicks that are too intense to handle. And therefore, life is a training ground. And especially the concept of prayer is a concept of taking helpless shelter of God when we know that in spite of your power, in spite of your pride, in spite of your greatness, you can't do anything. So Dashrath, he finally entered his courtroom after going to the temple of Danganath, and he started walking towards his throne. And as Dashrath was walking towards his throne, the same throne he had walked many times towards, but this time he is going for a different reason. This particular court day was not a regular court day. Dashrath had called all the most important citizens of Ayodhya to be present over there. Not just the most important citizens of Ayodhya, all the ministers were present, the sages were present, and also he had called all the kings who were, a part of the kingdom of Ayodhya, the smaller kings. And in the midst of calling all these people, he deliberately did not call two people. He did not call Janak, the father of Mother Sita, and he did not call Yuthajit and Ashwapati, the brother and father of Kaikeyi. Somebody might wonder, the reason that Dashrath gave was they were too far away to come in time for the meeting, because the meeting had been called on a short notice. But actually people from further away had been called, and these two were not called. A complex mindset is indicative of some complexity of the past. So whenever an exception is made, that exception indicates something has happened in the past because of which there is an exception now. We will see what was that exception later as the story unfolds. So Dashrath looked at every member in the audience and he was really respectful because these are the very people that helped him make Ayodhya what it is now. And he was looking at all of them with great gratitude. And he looked at each one of them and he told all of them that I am calling you all because I have to make a very important decision in life. I have to make the most important decision in life, and because I want to make the most important decisions in life, I need the collective wisdom of all of you all together. So, although there were so many in number, the most amazing thing was that this whole body was one cohesive unit. Unity without loyalty to the common goal is like cement without water, useless. So though all of them were together, they were also united towards the common goal of making Ayodhya what it was now. Decision making is like breathing. In breathing, there has to be a careful balance between intake and outgive. You can't only keep breathing in. Why should I give? Why should I give out air? I will only take air, you know. You keep breathing in more and more and more, you will die. And you keep breathing out more and more and more, you die. You have to breathe in and breathe out. That balance has to be there. So decision making is like a balance between breathing in and breathing out. So decision making must be a careful balance between personal benefits, that means which is taking in, inhalation, and communal harmony, which is giving out, exhalation. So when we make decisions in life, we have to remember that there are many situations when decisions should not be made. There are many situations when decisions should be made, but there are many situations where decisions should not be made. The Mahabharata talks about 7 situations in life when one should not take decisions. The first situation when one should not take decision is when one is in too much fear. Fear-driven decisions are bad decisions. When a tortoise is standing on its legs, the shell at the back protects it. But when the tortoise is flipped and is standing on the shell, it becomes helpless. That very shell grounds it, and the legs are flapping around and it's totally helpless when it is standing on the shell. So when decisions are taken when one is fearful, it is like that. The tortoise lying at the back with his legs flapping around. Totally in such a situation, what good decision can you make? In the Mahabharata, there is a story of Ashwathama who gets trapped between all the Pandavas because he has killed the 5 sons of Pandava and he is running away, and all the 5 Pandavas come and catch him, and Krishna is also there. And in the midst of all these 5 people, he is taking a decision, what should I do? And in that fear, he throws the Brahmastra. The Brahmastra is thrown for universal destruction. And here is throwing it on a small baby. So when somebody is too much fearful, he makes wrong decisions. When there is too much affinity, then you make wrong decisions also. A cloth which is hung on a hook, it takes shelter of that hook. But when the same hook, the cloth is pulled, that hook tears the cloth. Similarly, when people take shelter of another person, it's good. But when you take too much shelter of another person, too much affinity towards another person, it's like being pulled from the hook that cloth tears. That's what happened with Karna. Karna, he didn't just take shelter of Duryodhana. He took too much shelter of Duryodhana. As a result, he was practically torn away from his dharma. When one is in too much anxiety, when one is in grief, one should not take decisions in life. Ink, when it is dropped on a blotting paper, ink spreads fast, depending on the quality of the blotting paper. Similarly, grief, it begins like a drop. But if the mind is like a blotting paper, as soon as grief falls on the mind, it starts spreading. And soon the mind is only thinking of the bad thing that has happened to us. We find Gandhari took 2 decisions in her life out of grief. One decision was when Kunti gave birth to Yudhishthir first. Out of grief, she hit her womb. And second, when all her 100 sons were dead, she was in extreme grief and she cursed Krishna that his whole dynasty would be destroyed. When one is too happy, one should not take decisions. When you laugh, when somebody cracks a joke, you start laughing. But if you laugh too much, you start crying. The body gives you a signal when you do too much. So, similarly, when decisions are taken, when there is too much happiness, you tend to take wrong decisions in life. And finally, when decisions are taken, when one is in anxiety, they are wrong decisions. Can you run and while running drink water? Not possible. You need to have a little peace to be able to drink and eat. You can't run and eat, you can't run and drink. Similarly, in life, decisions that are driven by anxiety are not the best decisions. And when decisions are depending on others' opinion too much opinion-driven decisions, again, are not the best decisions. Others' opinions are like sticky notes on the walls of our mind. Get stuck. And then you just can't take it off. Somebody puts an opinion and goes away. And you are handling that opinion for such a long time. Duryodhan was exactly like that. Shakuni's opinions were dominating his life. And naturally, he made all the wrong decisions in life. And finally, when a person makes decisions out of weakness, he makes wrong decisions in life. A stick is used to walk, give support when you are weak. But if a weak person uses that stick only to lash on people, then that weakness has become meanness. Dhritarashtra all the time considered himself to be weak. I am blind, I am old, I am helpless, I am blind, I am old. Whenever he went through a problem in his life, he would always repeat the same dialogue. I am blind, I am old, I am helpless. And just by speaking that, he made all the blunders of the universe possibly, and practically his weakness actually became his meanness, slashing people like anything. So as Dashrath was sitting in this court, in the midst of all these wonderful people, he suddenly heard a commotion. Everybody in Ayodhya, they were together saying, Dashrath Maharaj ki jai, Dashrath ki jai, Dashrath ki jai. And as Dashrath was hearing these words of his own name being chanted, he went into a flashback. He went into a memory of some incident that had happened in this past. Dashrath, his original name was not Dashrath. His name was Nemi. That was the name of King Dashrath originally. How he got the name Dashrath has a very interesting story behind it. So Nemi, the king, he was a very powerful king. So one time the demigods came to Nemi and told Nemi that, please come and help us fight with a demon named Shambharasur. Shambharasur was a very powerful demon, and all the demigods were not able to handle him, and they called Dashrath. Can you imagine how powerful Dashrath was? So Dashrath went to fight against Shambharasur, but he was very overconfident. The demigods told him, don't be overconfident with Shambharasur. This man can expand into 10 forms. Dashrath still went alone on his chariot, and at that occasion, his chariot driver was his third wife, Kaikeyi. Kaikeyi was very much trained in the art of war. And naturally, because she was trained in the art of war, she was trained in practically every aspect of the war. So Dashrath, he went with her, and as he went with her, they reached Shambharasur and the fight began. And as Dashrath was fighting with Shambharasur from ahead, suddenly he started seeing arrows coming from behind. And then arrows coming from this side, arrows coming from this side. Shambharasur was expanding into many forms. And from all directions he was shooting arrows at Dashrath, and Dashrath was somehow that they're trying to fight just to not allow the arrows to hit him, what to speak of fighting against him. In the midst of all this, when 10 Shambharasurs had formed, Dashrath became unconscious practically. And Kaikeyi took off Dashrath from the battlefield by taking a chariot upwards. The word Dashratha means the one whose chariot can go in 10 directions. So Dashrath's chariot could move in 10 directions. So Kaikeyi saved Dashrath by taking the chariot off and brought him to a safe place. Dashrath was very grateful that she saved his life. They went back to the war again. And as they were fighting against Shambharasur again, now these 10 demons were attacking from all 10 sides. Suddenly, the wheel of Dashrath's chariot came off. It was practically wobbling, it was coming off. Dashrath saw it, but he couldn't do anything because he was fighting. And Kaikeyi saw it, and she knew that doing something means risking her life. But still, she wanted to help her husband. She bent down and put her fingers into the slot to prevent the wheel from coming out. And Dashrath, when he saw that his wife was going through so much agony and pain to just save his life and to help him, he became so angry that in a few minutes he killed all the 10 Shambharasur clones. And Shambharasur was history. And at that point of time, Dashrath got the name, Nimi got the name Dashrath. And the demigods in the heavens, they were shouting, Dashrath Maharaj ki jai, Dashrath Maharaj ki jai. And that was the flashback that Dashrath had. Service, if service is like flower, genuine service attitude is like fragrance that come out from the flower. There is no point in doing service if you don't have the right attitude to do the seva. Gratitude is like a bee that hovers around that service, around that flower of service. Relationships thrive when genuine service is acknowledged by active gratitude. So, Kaikeyi was happy to serve Dashrath, and Dashrath was happy to receive, was grateful to receive. And at that point of time, Dashrath told Kaikeyi that you can ask for 2 boons. Because you saved my life 2 times, you ask me 2 boons. Whatever you want, I'll give you. Kaikeyi had told him, not now. When I want it in future, I'll ask. Now I have everything and I don't need anything. So, essentially in life, we need to be grateful for what happens to us, what we are receiving. One time, there was a beggar, and this beggar, he was begging in different places. One time, a rich man came to this beggar, and he just happened to observe the beggar. And he asked him, how did you become a beggar? He said, I've been applying for a job for so many years, so many weeks, but I'm not being able to get a job. So I have to do something to feed myself. So I'm begging. This rich man said, what if I give you a job? The beggar said, you tell me what you want me to do, I'll do. I'm happy to work. The rich man said, what if I don't want to give you a job, but I want to make you my business partner? This beggar was completely bewildered. He said, what do you mean by make me a business partner? Beggar said, okay, I'm happy to be a business partner. I can take 5% and I'll give you 95%. The rich man said, no. The beggar said, okay, you keep 90%, I'll keep 10%. The rich man said, no. He said, I want 10% and you keep 90%. The beggar was completely bewildered. He said, what is this? How can it be possible that, you're giving me 90% profit and you're giving only 10%? The rich man said, I am too rich, beyond your comprehension of what richness is. He said, I'll open a business for you and you run it. And all the profits you keep, 90% you keep, and only 10% you give it to me. And this beggar, he said, I'm happy. And they started the business. 30 days passed and this beggar had become a millionaire practically, with booming business. And at the end of 30 days, this rich man came to this beggar and asked him for his 10% of his profits. The beggar started thinking, why does this fellow deserve it? I have done all the hard work. Why does he want 10% also? He doesn't deserve even the 10%. I am doing 100% work, and why should I give him? And he went to this man and said, why should I give you? I am doing all the hard work. Everything should belong to me only. This is the way in which we express gratitude in life. God is like that rich man who has given us unlimited amount of wealth. I was in Bahrain. I'll tell you, my gratitude to God increased unlimited times just by going to Bahrain and coming back. I'll tell you why. Because the deserts of Bahrain, huge deserts, and in the deserts of Bahrain, there are oil drills. So people are drilling oil from the ground. And you can't believe it. You can't believe it with your eyes. There's a machine that goes in, drills oil, and then there's a machine that brings up the oil and puts it into a pipe. Automatic, fully automated, no human being around. And there are hundreds of oil wells across the deserts. Hundreds of oil wells. Just the profit or the money that they make out of this oil that comes from the deserts in Bahrain is $1 billion a day. Can you imagine what is the meaning of $1 billion a day? Who is working? Who is working hard to bring that oil out? Who is working hard to make that oil? No one. God is like that rich businessman who has given us a business. What he is expecting is only 10% you share your profits with God. He is not expecting you to give the 90% of his profit and keep 10% with you. He is expecting you at least express your gratitude. He is too rich. He doesn't need your money. What he needs, that 10% he is taking not for a share, but he wants you to share your gratitude with him. And that's what the whole concept of relationships is. When you receive, you also have to learn to at least give back gratitude. So Dashrath, he dragged himself back to the present, and the past glory is gone. No point in remembering the past glory. Right now there is a very gloomy present. So he started looking at all the people of Ayodhya, and he started speaking. He said, my dear citizens of Ayodhya, this world is a I generation. Everybody is thinking about himself only in selfishness. And he said, I have learned that whatever I have gained in my life is because of the presence of all of you all in my life. And he said, now I have become old. And because I have become an old man, there are millions of expectations on me. I can't handle these expectations anymore. I want to hand over this kingdom. And he said, when time is coming to change, when a season changes, you can't stop the season from changing. Can you? Now the summer season is coming, hot. Can't do anything about it. You have to just tolerate it, right? So change management is about gracefully changing the way we perceive change. So Dashrath realized, my life is changing, and therefore I have to change the king also. So he said, the word Maharaj means, is also referring to a renunciant. A king also is called Maharaj, and a renunciant is also called Maharaj. A king who has a lot is called Maharaj, and a renunciant who has nothing is called Maharaj. Why? Because the king who has a lot, he has a lot of wealth. And the renunciant who has nothing, he has a lot of renunciation. He has a lot of wealth of inner substance. And therefore, a renunciant is also called Maharaj. So Dashrath said that so far I have been conquering outer enemies. Now I want to retire and I want to spend the time conquering my inner enemies. Each of us have two enemies to handle, the outer enemies and the inner enemies. The inner enemies are very difficult to handle. The outer enemies are very easy. So the 6 anarthas are compared to the 6 inner enemies. But there is a very interesting way of seeing the anarthas. There are 6 examples that help us understand the 6 anarthas that each of us are dealing with and how to deal with them. Lust is compared to fire. As long as fire is confined to a fireplace, it provides warmth. But as soon as that fire jumps out of the fireplace, it destroys. Lust, as long as it is confined, it is okay. But the moment lust gets out of the confinement, it starts destroying. Anger is compared to water. Water, when it is sprayed on the face, sprinkled on the face, it gives a cooling effect. You feel nice. On a hot day, somebody sprinkles a little water on you, you feel very happy. But the same water, if it destroys a dam and comes out, it goes crazy. It can destroy villages, it can destroy human society practically. So similarly, anger, as long as it is expressed in small spurts, it is okay. But when anger blasts out, it goes out of control. Ego is compared to a frog. So the frog, it overestimates its own voice. It stings great of its own voice and it starts croaking like anything and attracts a snake and it dies. So a person who is egoistic, he uses self-praise and attracts a snake of time. Greed is like accumulating water in a pot. Accumulating water in a pot is not a problem. Ambition is not a problem. But the moment the pot develops a hole, the water leaks out. So greed is like a hole in a pot. It just leaks out and takes away, it keeps you always thirsty. You're not satisfied only because how much ever you fill that pot, it is going to go away. It's going to drain away. Illusion is like a camel which is feeding on cactus thorns. So when a camel is biting on the thorns of a cactus, the blood of a camel, it starts coming out. And the camel tastes its own blood and it says, wow, this is nectar. So what is nectar and what is poison, the camel doesn't understand. It considers poison to be nectar. So somebody who is in illusion considers those things that are sources of misery to be sources of happiness. And finally, envy is like a man who has consumed a datura plant. When a person consumes a datura plant, he dies immediately. It's a poisonous plant. So if a man consumes a datura plant just to check out if it works or no, so that he can give it to his enemy, what happens? He will not be allowed to give it to his enemy because he will die himself, So envy is like that. If you consume it, thinking that I'll spit it out on somebody else, you die first. So Dashrath was praising, so he was telling all the citizens that I want to hand over this kingdom to Lord Ram. So he said, I want to ask all of you all your opinion. What do you say? Should I hand over the kingdom to Ram? Should I give this kingdom to Ram? Please tell me. As soon as Dashrath said that, as soon as Dashrath spoke these words, the entire assembly, thousands of people at one time spoke 3 words. They said, Ichchama, Mahabahum, Raghuviram. They said, we want it, Ichchama. Mahabahu means we want Ram who is the mighty armed one. Raghuviram means he is a very powerful king in the ancestry of Raghu. One citizen got up and he told Dashrath, you get down, let Ram become the king now only. Dashrath got bewildered. He didn't expect such a disastrous opinion. He started thinking. He said, am I such a bad king? So many years I ruled, and now just one time I asked you all, should I make Ram the king, and you all are so excited about it. Am I such a bad king? And all the citizens, they said, your only disqualification is that you have Ram as your son. You have a person who is as worthy as Ram as your son. And another person said, our situation is like a cow who has given birth to twins, 2 calves at a time. And the cow is confused which calf to give more attention to. Should I give attention to this calf or should I give attention to this calf? For us, both you, Dashrath and Ram are equally important. So we are completely confused whom to give attention to. Should we give attention to Ram or should we give attention to you? We want both of y'all. And then as all these people are speaking these beautiful words, appreciating Ram's greatness, Dashrath started becoming very happy from within. Because now, from being an insecure king, he's become a secure father. The fatherly pride has come up. So all the citizens of Ayodhya, they said, so Dashrath asked, why do you want Ram to be the king? The citizens of Ayodhya, they said, there are 3 reasons why we want Ram to be the king. Ram has 3 qualities in him which make him the ideal king. Any person who wants to do any kind of leadership has to have 3 qualities in him. The first quality that one should have is talent. Talent is like a sword. There are many people who have sword but they don't know how to use a sword. What is the point in having a sword if you don't know how to use it? Just having talent is not enough, but how to utilize the talent and where to utilize the talent is more important than just having talent. So Ram not only has talent, but he also has a second thing, which is attitude. So talent without attitude is like sweet rice without sugar. It's not called sweet rice. It's just going to be called rice, So talent, it brings you to the brink of the bridge of success. And right attitude helps you cross it. So they said, the citizens of Ayodhya, they said that Ram not only is talented, but he also has a right attitude. And they said, not only Ram has a talent and the right attitude, but he also has a perfect character. So talent and attitude take one to success, but character helps one maintain that success. So many people become successful fast because they are talented and they may have the right attitude also. But if they do not have the right character, that success is not long lasting. Therefore, Dashrath, when he heard these statements about Lord Ram, he became very happy. And then one citizen said, "My dear king, you want to hear more about Ram? Let us tell you." They said, Ram is such a perfect person, such an amazing person, that when all of us go through joys and sorrows in life, Ram comes to share those joys and sorrows with us. He said that when we are happy, when anybody in our family is going through a happy phase, Ram comes to our house and he is more happy than the family members. We don't understand how he can be more happy than the family members. And when we go through a sad phase in our life, Ram comes to our house and he cries more than the family members. We can't understand why he is crying more than the family members. Essentially, people were telling Dashrath that Ram really cares for us and understands us. It's very interesting to observe that the citizens of Ayodhya, they never told Dashrath that Ram comes and solves our problems. They said, Ram comes and cries with us when we go through problems. Not everyone wants solutions to the problems of life. People want others to understand their problems of life. What people really need is not a solution, because not all problems have solutions. At least if somebody understands that we are in a problem and rather understands our problem, that itself is half the solution. People don't really always expect solutions to problems of life. So Dashrath, when he heard the praise of all the citizens of Ayodhya, he became extremely happy. There is a difference between flattery and appreciation. Flattery, empty flattery, soothes the mind. But appreciation really touches the heart. Flattery, it only uses the tongue. When you want to flatter somebody, you only have to use one organ of your body, that is your tongue. But if you have to appreciate somebody, only the tongue is not enough. You have to use your eyes to observe. You have to use your ears to hear. You have to use your intelligence to analyze. You have to use your tongue to speak, and you have to use your heart to feel. Only then you can appreciate somebody genuinely. So the citizens of Ayodhya, they were genuinely appreciating Ram from their bottom of their hearts. As I was saying, that Ram was not making everyone happy by his words, or rather by his ability to solve problems. Most people think that people want to be happy in life. Everyone wants to be happy, right? Who wants not to be happy? I will teach you today. I'm sure you must have heard many people talking about how to be happy in life. 2 ways to become happy in life. I'm going to teach you all today 2 ways how to be unhappy in life. You might wonder, what is this? Have you come to learn unhappiness or happiness? But by learning how to be unhappy, you will learn to be happy also, if you don't do it. So essentially, there are 2 ways to be unhappy in life. The first way to be unhappy in life is that try to make everybody happy with you. If you try to make everybody happy, first is try to make everybody happy. If you try to make everybody happy in life, everyone else may be happy, but there will be one person who will be unhappy. That is you. As long as you are trying to make everybody happy, one person will be surely unhappy, that will be you. If Jesus Christ and Krishna could not make everybody happy, what is the guarantee you will make everybody happy? Can you imagine? So essentially, the first way how to be unhappy in life is try to make everybody happy. And second way how to remain unhappy in life is try to make everybody happy with you. When you try to make everybody happy with you, and if one person is unhappy, that's enough. You'll remain miserable. You try to make everybody happy with you, and if just one person is unhappy and everybody else is happy with you, you will only focus on one person. Ye kyun nahi has raha hai? Why is this person, not happy with me? And you go and try to start making that person happy, and you will remain miserable. Because there are some people who are meant not to be happy only. So essentially, we should give ourselves a freedom to be happy with myself independent of whether the world is happy with me or no. That's very important. So how can one person be happy with himself? A person can be happy with himself if there is a certain condition that is met. Depending on what fruit you squeeze, that is the juice that you will get. You squeeze a mango, you will not get banana juice. You will get a mango juice. If you squeeze an apple, you will get apple juice. So when life squeezes you, what is within comes out. So essentially, you will not cherish any relationship in life unless you are happy with yourself. So most people in this world try to make everybody else happy, but they are not happy with themselves, therefore they remain miserable. Because unless you are from within satisfied and happy, you can't really share happiness with others. You can't really give happiness to others. So how do you remain happy with yourself? First of all, you don't define yourself by the way you look, or by the length of your hair, or by the color of your skin, or by the sharpness of your nose, all the color of your eyes. All these are very superficial levels of looking at yourself as being happy, or looking at yourself rather. Once you start doing something valuable in life, once you start doing something worthwhile in life, nobody cares how you look. To nobody it matters how you look. Once you start doing something worthwhile in life, nobody ever analyzed the beauty of Mother Teresa. Nobody analyzed the beauty of Mahatma Gandhi. If you look at Prabhupada's beauty, so only you will talk about. But nobody really analyzed the beauty of Prabhupada from an external point of view. Once you contribute something, once you do something worthwhile, people don't look at you at all. They look at what you do. A perfume bottle, it may look fantastic. The best shaped bottles are perfume bottles basically. Just because the shape of the perfume bottle is very good, you don't drink the perfume what is inside it. What is inside is important, not the shape of the bottle. So essentially, what is within you is important and not your externals. So if you are happy by contributing something, doing something worthwhile, then you will be happy with yourself, and then you don't need to depend on other people to decide whether you are happy or no, or rather to make you happy. So when Dashrath heard all the citizens of Ayodhya happy with Ram being the king, Dashrath, he turned towards his guru Vashishta, and Vashishta told Dashrath, "My dear king, everybody is happy with this decision. The entire Ikshwaku dynasty is happy." And he said, "Rest assured, your decision to step down and hand the reins over to Ram is acceptable to everybody." So Dashrath, when he heard his teacher Vashishta saying this, he became extremely happy. So it is explained the joy that Dashrath was experiencing, this was twice the joy that Dashrath experienced when Ram was born. This was thrice the joy Dashrath experienced when Ram was married. This was 4 times the joy Dashrath experienced when Ram broke the bow of Lord Shiva. And this was 5 times the joy that Dashrath experienced when Ram defeated Parashuram. Dashrath was extremely happy, and he made a declaration which surprised everyone. He declared that the coronation will happen tomorrow. Can you imagine? Today decided and tomorrow king. Straight. So people are quite shocked. But the king has declared, so everybody were ready. So Dashrath got up after declaring and he walked out of the palace straight with Sumantra, his confidant, and his chariot driver and his minister. So he told Sumantra, "Go and get Ram." So Sumantra went and he got Lord Ram to Dashrath. And as Sumantra got Ram to Dashrath and Ram came in, Dashrath started speaking to Ram. Mind you, by this point of time, Ram has not even been informed that he is going to become the king. Some decision has been taken in the court. Ram was not there in part of the court at all. And here Dashrath is calling Ram to give him the information. So Dashrath started telling Ram that, "My dear Ram, the court has decided that the next day we are going to make you the king of Ayodhya." And then he starts giving Ram guidelines on how a good leader should behave. He said, a good leader should have 2 loyal servants, desire and anger. Desire and anger should be loyal servants of a good leader. The day desire and anger peep out without the permission of the leader, that day the leader is finished. The day that the leader is conquered over by desire and anger, rather than having desire and anger conquer him, that day everything gets over. So essentially, Dashrath gives a lot of concepts of leadership to Ram, and then finally he tells him something that really shocks Ram. He tells Ram that for many days bad omens have been haunting me, and for many days I've been having horrible nightmares and I've been seeing all kinds of bad omens. And he said something bad is going to happen. Rahu and Mangal are coming towards my birth star. Either I'm going to die or I'm going to meet with a fatal accident. And Dashrath told Ram, my dear Ram, I no longer trust my mind. He said, these days my mind is having a life of its own. Before my mind deviates, I want to take this decision. I want to quickly hand over the reins of this of the kingdom to you and walk away. Unprotected and unpredictable mind is like an open pot of nectar. One drop of poison in that open pot of nectar is enough to finish off the entire nectar. Impossible to drink that nectar anymore. It's no more nectar. So, in life, how do you develop self-control? The mind is crazy. The mind is proposing all kinds of mad things, and in such a mad mind, how do you develop self-control? One time, there was a man who gave up all his bad habits and he became a monk. And he got a lot of mystic powers. And every day, after his meditations, he would come and answer a few questions. And before answering any question, he would ask them to get something to eat. And people would give him something to eat, and he would eat, and then he will answer questions. One day, he came after his meditation and he asked for a bottle of whiskey. The people got bewildered, you know. This fool, he's given up all his bad habits and suddenly he's asking for a bottle of whiskey. So anyway, they got a bottle of whiskey because they had faith in him. So he kept the bottle of whiskey over there in front of him, and he said, he looked at his followers. He folded his hands like this and looked at his followers. And he told them, do you all know one thing? He said, I have not reached the stage where I've transcended my desires, temptations and desires. I have not reached the stage as yet. My heart is still asking for many things. But he said, but I have reached one stage. The stage that I have reached is that I have taken control over my actions. Even if I have unlimited desires and temptations, if my hand doesn't go to that bottle of whiskey, I can't drink it. So I have tied my hands. I have folded my hands. And because I have folded my hands, I don't have control over my temptations and desires. But I do have control over my actions. Because I have control over my actions, one day will come when I'll have control over the temptations and desires also. Today, I may not have it. So in all of us in our lives, when we go through temptations and action and desires in our life, which we don't have control over, at least let us learn to fold our hands. And if our hands are folded, we may have the desire, we may have the temptation, but we don't have the ability to do the action because our hands are not free. So Dashrath, at this point of time, he said something that really shocked Ram. He told Lord Ram that my mind is unstable, therefore I may make mistakes. And then he said, today night, you and Sita remain celibate for the whole night and do fasting. And offer prayers and mantras. Prepare yourself for the coronation the next day morning. And he said, keep yourself surrounded by your best friends. Such ill omens can bring sabotage also. And he said, under his breath, Dashrath said something and walked away. Under his breath, Dashrath said, I want the coronation to take place when Bharat is away. And he walked away. And he said that Bharat is a righteous and compassionate brother and he will naturally follow you. But men are sometimes inconsistent. So under impulse, they might show unexpected results. Dashrath said this and walked away. Ram is thinking, what did my father say? He is doubting my brother? Bharat? Somebody who is so close to him and such a righteous person, how can my father doubt him? Anyway, Ram did not argue with Dashrath too much. Ram walked away to prepare himself. And Dashrath went back to his mirror and started looking at himself in the mirror. And again, those very grey hair on the head of Dashrath, they started speaking to him practically. It is explained, the Acharyas explain, Kamba Ramayana explains, that the grey hair on Dashrath's head were the sins of Ravan. The sins of Ravan had become grey hair on the head of Dashrath. And they were speaking to Dashrath. So essentially, there were two dramas were going on. There was an external drama, there was an internal drama. The demigods wanted to speeden up the process. If Ram becomes the king of Ayodhya, then who's going to kill Ravan? Ram will get, completely focused in, settling the kingdom and ruling the kingdom, and he'll have no desire to go and kill Ravan. So the demigod decided we have to do something. And they did something through someone else. As the city of Ayodhya was celebrating a festival, practically thousands of people were entering into Ayodhya by the minute. People from all over the world, practically from all corners of the place, were coming into Ayodhya to attend the coronation of Ram the next day. It was late in the evening, night had already approached, everything was dark, but festivity was going on. There was a great festival going on in Ayodhya. From a terrace, two eyes were watching the festival going on. And these two eyes were completely confused. These two eyes were looking at why is there such a scale of a festival going on today. This scale of festival only happened 25 years before in Ayodhya during the time of the birth of Ram and the three brothers. After that, today that level of festivity is going on in Ayodhya. There must be something wrong. And the most confusing part of these two eyes was that there was nothing that these eyes didn't know. There was nothing that these eyes did not have information about. But this was one thing that she didn't know at all. No idea. So the eyes kept looking all over Ayodhya and looking at all the festivities going on. And as the eyes were looking at the festivities, they were trying to analyze what could be the reason. Beauty resides not in the eyes, but in the vision of the beholder. When a person falls into a valley, a dirty valley, he can't look at the beauty of the mountains on top because he can only see dirt all around him. Similarly, somebody who is on a lower nature, having a lower nature, he can't appreciate something beautiful on a higher nature. Real vision is not so much a property of the eyes as much it is of the heart. So today, what society really needs is not an eye transplant, but a vision transplant. So essentially, eye transplant gives you the gift of sight, but a vision transplant gives you the gift of direction. So here, she was confused what was happening over here, completely confused. She asked someone, what's happening now? Why is there so much festivity? And that lady whom she asked, she said, don't you know, tomorrow is the coronation of Lord Ram. And this lady danced and went away. This person was completely bewildered. Valmiki Muni, when he describes the entry of mantra into Ramayana, he uses a very interesting word. He says, Yadrichaya. Yadrichaya means accidentally she came. Valmiki uses Yadrichaya, the same word, in two places. When Shurpanaka comes and when mantra comes. When both these ladies enter into the Ramayana, there is a twist. Something different is going to happen. All the twists of the Ramayana happen by when different ladies enter into the Ramayana, the stories of the Ramayana, When mantra enters, one twist happens. And when Shurpanaka enters, another twist happens, So, mantra, when she looks at what is happening below, she gets completely bewildered. So when Valmiki Muni says Yadrichaya, accidentally mantra has come, it teaches us something very important. An accident may get you somewhere, but what you do upon getting there is no accident. So mantra got there by accident, but after this what she is going to do is not an accident. It's her plan, it's her fault. So mantra, she was looking at the entire Ayodhya, she saw in one corner Kaushalya distributing charity. giving away charity on behalf of the king. And she starts thinking, this lady giving charity? Impossible. Kaushalya had no access to the royal treasury because she was not the favorite queen of the king. Kaikeyi had access to the royal treasury. And today Ram is not even coronated. The next day coronation is happening and the Kaushalya is distributing charity over here. A person who is envious can become envious of a positive cause also. When somebody is giving charity, he becomes envious of that also. Can you imagine? So, as Manthara was plotting all this, as Manthara was looking at this festivity, she saw very far away the palace of Ram and Sita. And she saw outside the palace thousands of people were standing and celebrating. They were actually so happy that Ram is going to become the king the next day. And as people were celebrating outside, something was happening inside the palace of Ram and Sita. Outside there was festivity, and inside there was soberness. Ram and Sita, they were sitting in front of a fire, chanting mantras, offering oblations into the fire, praying, because they knew the enormity of the responsibility that they were going to take on. And they realized that to take on so much responsibility, they have to sacrifice all their expectations and personal needs in this fire. And they were preparing themselves to make all those sacrifices. So, what is the word? So, the word sacrifice and the word fire, both are interconnected in the Vedic culture. The reason why both are interconnected is because both burn. Fire burns lumber and sacrifice burns slumber. So essentially, one cannot sleep when one is on fire. And a person who has decided to sacrifice for the sake of others, that person also can't sleep. So outside, the citizens were celebrating the fortune that they have the king, that they have Ram as the king. And inside, Ram was rejoicing the opportunity that he had to serve the citizens. Outside there was gala celebrations, and inside there was a very sober celebration. Outside people were dancing in festive songs and celebrating, and inside Ram and Sita were bowing down devotion and celebrating. So essentially Ram was telling Sita that next day morning they're going to take up a role. They're going to take up the role of a king and queen of Ayodhya, and therefore because they have to take up such a high responsibility, Ram and Sita decided to take shelter of higher powers. So, a fountain goes up and it goes to a great height only when it is propelled by a motor. Similarly, elevation in one's current level of responsibility happens only when one is using the power of commitment. And of course, commitment can sustain only when integrity motivates it. So, Ram is teaching one how to prepare oneself for taking up responsibilities. There is a very interesting comparison going on here, comparing the mood of Manthara and comparing the mood of Ram. Celebrating somebody else's success is a very difficult job. When somebody else becomes successful, you naturally tend to become envious. Celebrating somebody else's success requires maturity. Here, in a jungle, the success of a leopard lies in the failure of a deer. This is the rule of a jungle. But this is not how a human society functions. Even in a jungle, species of the same type don't fight with one another. They don't eat one another, right? So when human beings learn to celebrate each other's success, rather than plan one another's failure, they develop concrete relationships. And if they don't do it, they develop concrete jungles. So Ram was focusing on upgrading himself, and Manthara was focusing on how to pull Ram down. This is exactly what human life is. Manthara, it is explained that she started running down. Of course, the demigods, they all come together and twist the mind of Manthara also, because they ask Goddess Saraswati to do a little tongue twisting and they do a little mind twisting. And Manthara gets even more excited. She is already envious, but she gets even more envious because there is a cause now. So So the demigods, so Manthara, she runs down from the terrace to the palace of her queen, Kaikeyi. And as she is running towards Kaikeyi, she sees Kaikeyi sleeping peacefully over here. She runs towards Kaikeyi, and it is explained, Kamba Muni explains that Manthara runs towards Kaikeyi like a evil planet is running towards an unsuspecting person to destroy him. She catches hold of the feet of Kaikeyi, and holding the feet of Kaikeyi, she says, "Get up, you fool!" Can you imagine? When you hold somebody's feet, you are respectful. While holding her feet, she is saying, "Get up, you fool!" Disrespect and respect in the same time. Conflicting actions is permissible when the intention is clean. But when the intention itself is conflicting, actions lead to confusion. Whatever actions you do leads to confusion only. You know? So Manthara over here, she really pushed Kaikeyi, and Kaikeyi got up. And Kaikeyi said, "What's wrong with you? I have 4 sons. A woman who has 4 sons, why does she have to fear?" Manthara said, "You are sleeping and there is a flash flood going on outside. This flood in Ayodhya will take you, will wash you away. By tomorrow morning you will not be alive only." Kaikeyi is, look at Manthara's examples. Manthara tells Kaikeyi that Dashraths is only giving you a lot of love externally, but when it comes to favors, he gives to Kaushalya, your other wife. So Manthara was trying to convince Kaikeyi about something. She tells him that you are holding a poisonous snake in your cloth. You are showering it with love, you are showering it with affection and nourishing it, and you have strengthened it by love. Now when it becomes strong, it is biting you, it is going to kill you only. And he says, your husband is like a snake. You have been nurturing him with so much love till now. Look at this, what he has done to you. And he says that so far he has been showering you with kind words and telling you that he loves you, but when it comes to action, he goes and does everything for Kaushalya. So here, Manthara is measuring the magnitude of love by the quantity of facility given. Manthara is, when you measure the magnitude of love by the quantity of facility given, then relationships become a transaction. So mutual understanding becomes contracts, and serving becomes an investment, and denial becomes a breach of agreement. This is some legal language, by the way. So Kaikeyi, she told Manthara, speak properly. Don't speak all these coded words. So Manthara said, Dashraths has decided to appoint Ram as the king of Ayodhya. And that incompetent son of Kaushalya, who has killed innocent women like Tataka. Tataka was not a woman. She was a huge demoness whom Ram killed. And Manthara, look at how she is manipulating it. She is saying Ram killed innocent women like Tataka. And such an incompetent person, Dashraths is appointing as the king of Ayodhya. What nonsense is this? So Kaikeyi, when she heard that Ram is going to be appointed as a king, she jumped up. She said, what? What a great news. Ram is going to become the king. My son is going to become the king. And she removed a diamond-studded necklace and gave it to Manthara. And she said, thank you very much for getting such a news. She said, I know that you have come to give me this news so that you can get something special as a reward. Take this and be happy. A river doesn't differentiate between 2 banks. For the river, both the banks are exactly the same. A pure mind doesn't differentiate between what is mine and what is not mine. For a pure mind, everyone is the same. Kaikeyi, till this point of time, had a pure mind. Manthara, she remembered the insult that Ram did to her 20 years back. 20 years back, when Ram was a 5-year-old child, Ram insulted her once. He was playing with a mud ball, and he shot an arrow fitted with the mud ball on Manthara's hunchback, and the mud ball blasted. And Ram and all the children laughed. Manthara carried that in her mind for 20 years. Humor should be used carefully. Don't make jokes with the wrong person, it might cost you your kingdom. So Manthara remembered that something that Ram had done 20 years back, and that incident got stuck to her mind for so many years. When one makes an incident, an event that is in your life, the epicenter of your life, then your life pauses at that event. Your life doesn't go ahead at all. You are stuck there only. And all life long, you only keep thinking about that event only. So that incident became so deep, she decided she has to do something. She started crying profusely. She started slapping her own head. She started pulling her hair. She started tearing her clothes. She started beating her chest. She took that diamond necklace and she threw it on the floor with so much anger that practically the floor developed a dent. When Kaikeyi saw the force with which she Manthara threw, Kaikeyi realized that she has some point to say. She is not happy. Anger is a result of unmet desires. Anytime you get angry in your life, pause and think why you are angry. There must be one desire that is not met of yours and therefore you get angry. Sometimes you get angry for no reason. It is never for no reason. It is for some unmet desire of yours because of which you get angry. You're stuck in a traffic jam and you shout at the other fellow. You're not angry because that fellow is creating a problem. You're angry because you're getting late. There's an unmet desire in your heart because of which you express anger. Manthara, she tells Kaikeyi, you're in an ocean of trouble. Your position of a queen is like a boat. And your laughter that you're laughing over here, your laughter is like a drill that is drilling the boat and is going to drown you. So she tells her that the stepson and a co-wife are the primary enemies of a woman. If you don't take timely action now, you will be dead. You will be in a state of poverty. And then Manthara tells Kaikeyi that Kaikeyi tells Manthara that Ram is my son. He tells him that I know Ram more than myself. Ram has mountain-like, gem-like qualities. He's not going to abuse his brothers. He's not going to abuse his position. And he is going to serve and protect them like a father. And Kaikeyi told Manthara that Ram is the king of the Ikshvaku dynasty, the Suryavanshi dynasty. Solar rays is like a peacock. In the family of peacocks, there is a certain law that follows. It is explained, Kaikeyi is telling Manthara this. Just see, she is giving logic. She is telling Manthara, in a family of peacocks, the first peacock which is born, the first peacock that is born with a crown on its head. All other peacocks in that family are not born with a crown on a head. So Ram is the first son. You have to understand that Ram is going to be the king naturally. When you follow the laws of nature, things you benefit. But you can't force nature to accommodate your whims. When you allow the oyster to grow a pearl in its mouth, after a certain point of time, the pearl comes out. But if you forcibly open the mouth of the oyster, you will only find dirt inside it. It takes its own time. So Manthara, she looks at, so Kaikeyi tells Manthara that if anybody else had spoken these words, I would have cut the tongue of that person. But because you are speaking these words, therefore I am not really punishing you. And she tells her, so Manthara, she looks at Kaikeyi, she gives her a logic. She tells, if you think everything is so innocent that you're saying, tell me, why did Dashrath send Bharat away? And why is Dashrath coronating Ram when Bharat is not there over here in Ayodhya? Have you thought about this? Manthara looks at Kaikeyi and asks her a question. So Manthara tells Kaikeyi, Bharat is the only competition to Lord Ram. Bharat is the only competition to Ram because Lakshman and Shatrugna are too young to sit on the throne. Bharat is only close to Ram by age, and not just that, Ram has very intelligently won Lakshman to his side. And Shatrugna doesn't have any opinion of his own anyways. So the only person who can speak up is Bharat, and therefore Bharat has been sent away. Just look at this. So she is, Valmiki calls Manthara as Vakya Visharada. Vakya Visharada means she is very good in twisting words. She is very good in manipulating words. She is telling that Bharat is the only person who is competent to, because the age is same. That's a joke actually. Because the age difference between Ram and Lakshman was 1 day. Ram and Bharat were born on the same day, and Lakshman and Shatrugna were born the next day. So just the next day doesn't make the age difference so big, right? And she's telling that Lakshman is bought by Ram. It's not that Lakshman is bought by Ram. Lakshman loves Ram. And it's not that Shatrugna is having no opinion of his own. He follows what Bharat's opinion is. So mantra is just twisting words to suit her point. This is called as selective speaking. You speak only those words that you want the other person to listen. You kind of twist the words and you convey a message. So Kaikeyi started telling that don't worry, Ram is a very kind person. Ram will rule for a long period of time and then he'll give the throne to Bharat. Mantra said, you're gone mad. Throne is given forever. Once Ram sits on the throne, after him his sons will sit. After him his sons will sit. Your son and all your sons' descendants will become slaves to the throne of Ayodhya. They'll be tied chains to the throne of Ayodhya and they'll become servants. They'll not become king ever. And then mantra gives 3 reasons why Kaikeyi should listen to her. And after listening to these 3 reasons, Kaikeyi gets convinced what mantra is saying is correct. So sometimes when you present something logically, even if it is the wrong thing, people accept it. It just depends on how you package it. Mantra tells that these 3 reasons will help you understand why I am right. The first reason which I am going to give will save you. The second reason which I am going to give you will save your son. And the third reason which I am going to give you will save your father. 3 weaknesses of women. All the 3 weaknesses mantra caught. So she says, the first reason is that all your life you have been proud of your beauty and you have been thinking that because you are so proud of your beauty, you have been hurling unlimited insults on Kaushalya and Kaushalya has been just handling it helplessly. Don't think she's a fool. She has been sharpening a sword named Ram till now. And now that the sword is sharp enough, she is plunging into you. All the insult that you have made till now, this sword is going to come and destroy you. Once Ram becomes the king, Kaushalya will avenge every insult that you did to her. And can you imagine, if Kaushalya becomes the queen mother, if you want to give charity also, you have to go and beg Kaushalya to be able to give charity. Do you want to reach such a situation to give charity also? And then the mantra says, the second reason why you should listen to me is will save your son. She says, although you are Bharat's mother, you have been busy enjoying the palatial comforts and luxuries, but you have never really paid attention to your son's needs. You have allowed Bharat to spend more time outside Ayodhya in the kingdom of his uncle. Practically from the time Bharat got married, 12 years before, Bharat went to Kaikeyi Desh. And from 12 years, Bharat has not come back to Ayodhya only. So mantra is pointing out that. Mantra is telling, because Bharat has been away, Dashrath doesn't have any love for Bharat only. He has only love for Ram. So she says, when Ram becomes the king, Lakshman and Ram will become inseparable and nobody will care for Bharat. In fact, Ram will hunt down Bharat just like a lion hunts down an elephant. Just making up big stories, you know. She says, in fact, I want to tell Bharat not to come back to Ayodhya. From his uncle's place only he should go to jungle directly. Because animals in the jungle will be more, kind to him than Ram. Can you imagine what kind of, logic she's giving? And then she says that the third reason will save your father. Your father, Ashwapati, he has not been invited to the coronation of Ram. Why? And not just Ashwapati has been not invited to the coronation of Ram, even Janak, the king of Mithila, Sita's father, has not been invited to the coronation of Ram. Why? Why only these 2 people have not been invited? Mantra is giving explanation to Kaikeyi. She is telling Kaikeyi that in the past, Janak had many times tried to attack Kaikeyi's kingdom, Ashwapati's kingdom. And when Ram got married to Sita, he didn't attack Ashwapati's kingdom because there was a connection through Dashrath. Dashrath was the, father-in-law of Sita. So he can't attack his wife's, father's kingdom. So Janak is waiting for the time when Ram becomes the king. As soon as Ram becomes the king, Ram has no connection with Kaikeyi Desh. Ram has no connection with Ashupati. And because Ram has no connection with Ashupati, Janak will go and attack Ashupati and kill your father. You decide whether you want to protect your father or no. So Kaikeyi starts thinking, myself, my insults, my son's life, my father's life, and she jumps. She says, you're a savior, you're a savior. And she completely gets convinced that Manthara has actually saved her life. She tells her that you have saved me from falling headlong into a cliff. And the rug under my feet named Dashrath has been taken away. And I am falling into a bottomless pit named Kaushalya. And you are the one who has come and saved me in time. And she tells Manthara that my illusion is now completely shattered. You tell me what to do. Kaikeyi's heart is compared to a shallow pond during summer season. Now, fish that exist in a shallow pond don't exist in deeper ponds. It is explained that Kaikeyi's heart is like a shallow pond and Manthara is compared to a buffalo. When a buffalo enters into a shallow pond, what happens? All the dirt comes out. Kaikeyi already had some negativity. And with Manthara entering into her life, all the negativity has come up and fully, completely negative and ready now for attacking. So in life, we tend to give negative icons to people. So the other person may not be bad, but somehow the script that we have about the other person becomes bad. And because our script of the other person is bad, we tend to look at that person from that point of view only. So, like in when we use a computer or a laptop, we have icons. What is an icon? Icon is to remind you about a program. Microsoft icon. When you click on the Microsoft icon, Microsoft Word opens up, the program opens up. But essentially, the icon flashes in your mind as soon as you say word. W flashes in your mind, immediately. So similarly, in life, we make every incident in our life an icon. That there is a reference to that relationship. When we go through a bad phase in a relationship, when we go through a bad experience in the relationship, that bad experience we make it an icon and we store it. And whenever we remember that relationship, we remember that icon only. As soon as you remember somebody, immediately that negative icon comes up. That's the only thing that you have memory of. And therefore, if we don't have maturity, the greatest blunder that we do is that the last mistake in that relationship, that becomes the icon with which we identify the relationship. Many times in life, each one of us have gone through a bad experience in one relationship. And that one bad experience, we name it as, we brand it as an icon for that relationship. And that's exactly what happens to us when we look at different people. We start giving different icons to people. Each one of us over here, if you have any relationship in this room, all of you all have an icon sitting on your minds, and that's how we have branded people. Unfortunately, negative icons have to be replaced by positive icons. So whenever you remember a relationship, you should be able to remember something positive in that relationship. Most of the times, one small negative thing that happens in that relationship, we use that only as a brand of the icon of the relationship. And we forget all the years of positivity that has happened. And we only remember that one negativity. So Manthara, she told Kaikeyi, I will tell you what to do. Just listen to me and you follow what I say. She reminds Kaikeyi of 2 boons that Dashrath had promised her long back. And he says, this is the time to claim those boons back. Kaikeyi is mesmerized. She tells Manthara, how do you remember? So many years back I claimed that boon. How do you remember? I have forgotten about that boon completely. Human energy goes in such remembrances. So, because human energy is going into such memories, such remembrances, there is no space to love. There is no space to love people and accept people the way they are. So all our memories are filled with such negative experiences and such negative memories, therefore there is nothing left. So Mantra has filled all her GB with such memories only. And she could pull out all that, the different documents to show whenever the need is there. So Mantra was encouraging Kaikeyi that this is the time to claim your boons and to claim your kingdom. Essentially, Mantra was encouraging Kaikeyi to change her relationship with Dashrath from that of a life partner to a business partner. Rather than love transaction, Mantra was encouraging the transaction of Ayodhya. Kaikeyi was stunned. She told Mantra, tell me what you want me to ask. She says, your hunchback is like a magic box. So many ideas are stored in it. And he says that your hunchback has solutions to all the problems of Ayodhya. Once, I follow whatever you say, I'm sure there will lot of positivity in my life. So Mantra tells, ask for the two boons. First boon you ask Dashrath is that, make Bharat the king of Ayodhya. And the second boon you ask is that, send Ram to the forest for 14 years. The reason Mantra chooses 14 years is very interesting. In Treta Yuga, 14 years was the number of years that is required for a person who is lost to come back and claim his property. In Dwapar Yuga, 13 years was required. So therefore, Duryodhana sent Pandavas for 13 years to exile. And in Kali Yuga, in today's time and age, if you look at the legal documents, if you look at the sections in law, it is 12 years. So Mantra chose 14 years purposely, because 14 years means after the 14th year, the person who has lost his property can't claim and come and claim back the property. Very interesting thought process, So Mantra told Kaikeyi that you have to convince Dashrath to give you the boons, and to convince him to give you the boons, you have to make him weak. A weak mind cannot analyze what is right and wrong. Only when you make him weak in his mind and then you ask the boons, he will give it without thinking, because a weak mind cannot analyze. So the decision to make a decision has to be taken in the moment of strength and not in the moment of weakness. Most people make their decisions in life in moments of weaknesses, and therefore they make wrong decisions. So Mantra tells Kaikeyi that you should go to the Kopagraha. Kopagraha means is a sulking chamber. In the palace, they used to have different rooms, There used to be a room for crying. Can you imagine, A room only for crying. So in that room, naturally, there will be the right setting, and there will be tears probably, dripping. It's kind of a different atmosphere, essentially. So Mantra told Kaikeyi, you go into the sulking chamber, throw your clothes, completely dishevel your hair, wear old tattered clothes and fall on the ground, and then don't stop acting till Dashrath agrees to give you what you want. And then Kaikeyi becomes very, very happy. And she tells Mantra that the moment I become the queen mother of Ayodhya and my son becomes the king of Ayodhya, I will decorate your hunchback full with gold. I will dress you in silk saris, and all over your hunchback will decorate it with gold. And Mantra starts dancing. She becomes very happy, Can you imagine, Mantra dancing? So essentially, 1 ounce of immaturity coupled with 10 ounces of ill advice is a perfect recipe for a life of disaster. So suddenly, Mantra became very serious as she was dancing, and she said, no matter what, never stop till Dashrath promises you to give the boons. And then she walked away. And then Kaikeyi enters into the sulking chamber, and Dashrath in the meanwhile, he is in anxiety. He spoke to Ram. Now he's in anxiety about how to spend the whole night, because he's going to get dreams again. So he wants not to get dreams in that night and somehow have a peaceful night. So he decides to come to Kaikeyi's room. Whenever he had worries, he would always come to Kaikeyi. So Dashrath ran out of the palace of his own palace like a thirsty man running towards a well. And then he realized, he felt he's not running toward a well, but he's running towards an ocean. Unfortunately, the ocean may be much deeper and bigger than a well and contains more water than a well. But how much ever you drink ocean water, you will remain thirsty only. Dashrath didn't realize he's running towards an ocean which is not going to satisfy his thirst. So he ran with expectations. And as he entered the palace of Dashrath, of Kaikeyi, everything was dark. Generally, the palace of Kaikeyi would be fantastically lighted and really well decorated to receive him. But today, everything was dark. Nobody was looking at him. And finally, after a lot of asking, one maid servant, she said that Kaikeyi is in the sulking chamber. And Dashrath ran towards the sulking chamber, and as he descended the steps of the sulking chamber, as he was climbing up one pair of steps, he was climbing up with hope. And as he was going down the other pair of steps, he was going out with anxiety. And as he was going down, he saw the whole scene was completely shocking. Kaikeyi was lying on the floor like an angel. Her hair was spread out. All the jewels were thrown here and there. Her waistband had been hit so badly that practically pieces of the waistband were spread all over the room. So she was in a bad shape. Dashrath was completely bewildered because he had never ever seen her in such a situation. And the worst of all, that the kumkum markings on the head of Kaikeyi, she had rubbed it off. Before one externally rubs off any symbols of relationships, one rubs it off millions of times internally. So by rubbing off her kumkum, Kaikeyi was indicating that her priority was more personal comfort, and it had overridden the sacred relationship that she was having. Crookedness of the body is not as bad as the crookedness of the mind. When a crooked mind comes between two people, love becomes hatred and simplicity becomes duplicity. Kaikeyi was simple, and now she's become duplicitous because mantra has come in. So when mantra comes in between Kaikeyi and Dashrath, there was a permanent twist in their relationship. Changes in the external relationship occur when there is changes in the loyalty levels internally. So in relationships, how do we really sustain? Tomorrow, I will begin with this concept of relationships. Please remind me. I'll discuss some road lessons on relationships. And we'll leave Kaikeyi to lie down on the floor. And Dashrath is in anxiety. And I will end with one small thought that will really help you all in your personal relationships as you all go ahead in your lives. When you travel on a highway, and as you're traveling on a highway, relationships is like driving a car. When you drive a car on a highway, suppose a truck comes from front. Big, massive truck comes from ahead. What will you do? Will you turn around and somehow avoid the truck? Or will you say that I am on the right side? Why he is coming? In relationships, by proving that the other person is wrong, you can never get the relationship right. In a relationship, whoever is proved wrong, somehow the other relationship goes wrong. The ego always needs to prove that I am right. The question in relationship is not whose mistake it is. The question is whose life it is. When you're driving a car and a truck comes ahead of you, even if the truck driver is on the wrong direction, wrong side, you can't go and bang the lorry, bang the truck. You can't say that I am coming on the right side, you go. The question on the road, when you are driving on a road, you don't need a teacher to tell you what to do. Intuitively you understand. With the limitations of the traffic on the road, we have to adjust. If the 17th truck comes also, you have to adjust only. You can't say how many times I will tolerate. And if you get banged in a car and you reach in a hospital fractured and a leg is up, hand is up, you can't say I was right. I met with the accident, but I was right. I was in the right direction. So when we are driving on a road, to take decisions on the road, intuitively we know with the limitations of the traffic on the road, we have to adjust. Because the question is not who is right, question is whose life it is. Similarly, in dealing with the limitations in relationships, The question is not whose mistake it is. The question is whose life it is. And when we understand this and remember this question, then we will be happy to adjust in a relationship and go ahead. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.